Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to Tell Me in 10. Today, I am joined by Darren Edwards, who is a minister over at Ignite Church in Lincolnshire. And I'm just going to let him introduce himself in a minute, and then we're going to ask him 10 questions. Darren is a really great guy, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So, Darren, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your family.
So my name is Darren, as you've already heard. I'm currently in Lincoln. I used to live in a little old town called Northampton, which is sort of 60 miles north of London, and I lived on quite a rough estate and stuff. In fact, our old street used to be called Murder Road as a nickname, so it's a bit rough down that way. I have a wife and two children. Both my children are almost grown up now. Sophie's should have been doing her GCSEs this year, and Liam should have been finishing his A levels. And my wife is doing a doctorate. She's a year off finishing a doctorate in psychology. She's a clever one, I think.
Yeah, my wife's a clever one of a lot of us as well. So definitely. So can you tell us, Darren, our first question is always, what was your journey to faith? How did you become a Christian? Did you grow up in a Christian household? How was it?
No, as it happens, I think when I was a really young boy, my social workers tried taking me to church a couple of times. As you can imagine, I was pretty much feral, so that wasn't too fun for them, so I stopped doing that. And then I think when I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old, my grandma tried taking me along to a Salvation Army to get me involved in a youth group there. And I stayed in that until I was about maybe 10 years old. And very quickly, I entered into a life of doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing, really. So I think about 11 years old, I was shoved into a shed in someone's back garden, like a gang, and they said, eat this weed, or otherwise you're not coming out and you can't be part of our gang. So I ate that weed, and I ate my uncle's weed as well because he was too scared. So he was a few years older than me, like 4 years older than me, and we both wanted to be in this gang. So I ate his weed and my weed, and we become part of that little crew, And then I think I must have been about 23 years old, and I'd say I was probably an alcoholic. I'm not sure whether I like the word alcoholic. I binge drank every day, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking all sorts of different drugs and stuff all the way through my childhood and into my adolescence and young adulthood. And I think I'd say that I hated the world. I hated society. I hated everything and everyone. I wanted anarchy in the world around me, so it would match what was going on inside of me, I guess. That's a bit deep, isn't it? One day, I know, right? I saw a couple of little weird coincidences, we'll call them. My daughter prayed for the weather to change, and it did. And my wife, who was going to the local Elim church, started talking about, Sophie prayed and the weather changed. And I was like, okay, funny coincidence. These things happen. I was proper into like atheist sort of like forums and stuff like that. So I weren't having any of that. And about a year later, she prayed again and the weather changed, and Laura made a big deal of it. And I was like, twice in a year, again, funny coincidence. But then another day, about 2 weeks after the second time, I was getting Sophie from school. She was in like nursery, so she was on half days, and I brought her home. And on the way home, the sky was like black. It was going to pour it down. It was going to be a big old storm, and it's so dark actually that you'd expect the street lights to come on. And I said to her, play with your games in the lounge. And she said, no, I want to play in the back garden. I want to fly a kite. So I said, well, you can't. I said, it's about to be a storm, you get soaked, so you can't go out there. Why don't you pray to your Jesus, that fella? And if he makes it sunny, then I'll go out in the back garden with you. And so she did. And she, like, probably 4 years old, sat there with her little hands like this and started praying, dear Jesus. And me being the more of a dad that I was, I went out into the back garden to go and get a cigarette. And what I did was I lit my cigarette inside my hand so that it wouldn't get wet. And I was just inside the back door. When I opened the back door, the sky was blue and the sun was shining. The wind had dropped so much we couldn't even fly a kite anyway.
Gosh.
And I started thinking there might be a bit more to this Jesus fella. So I guess from that point on, I sort of went on a journey of discovery. I had three big questions. The first big question is, was Jesus a real person? Did he really exist? Did he really die? Did he really rise again? All that sort of stuff, you know. What is the evidence of him being a real person? And so I looked at like all the history and history in like artifacts and different things outside of the Bible. I didn't want to read the Bible because I thought it would be all pro Jesus instead of seeing it from a critical point of view. I know I look a bit dumb, but sometimes I rain on me, right? And so I started looking outside of Scripture for evidence that Jesus was a real guy. And you know, there's things like the Babylonian Talmud and things like that, historical newspapers basically that talked about this fella called Jesus. And so I was like, okay, so I think he's a real guy. I think he was a real man who existed in history. The second question was, is he who he says he was? So now I had to find out, who does he say he was? Well, he says he's God. And he says that he can, that he created everything and he can do miracles and all that sort of stuff. So, okay, well, what's the evidence for that? So I looked at things like the martyrs and stuff like that. You know, for someone to die to get rich, someone would tell a lie to get rich, but someone wouldn't die for a lie, if that makes sense. You know, so these guys would go around preaching the good news, and you know, I've seen loads of rich preachers, right? There's some of these guys have jumbo jets and all sorts. So I'm like, yeah, of course, you know, if you're Peter, you'd want to preach Jesus if you're going to get rich, right? But then the evidence that it weren't about money, and it weren't about society, it weren't about like family, it weren't about comfort or anything. It was the fact that he died. So I'm like, you wouldn't die for a lie. You know, so after reading a lot of that sort of stuff and hearing some stories about miracles and stuff that were happening or funny coincidences, I soon decided that actually I reckon this Jesus fella might be who he says he is. He might be God. And then my third question was, what's my response to that? And I chose to follow Jesus. You know, I chose to follow him with my whole heart, my whole soul, my whole mind. I followed him with everything I've got. Giving him all my money, giving him all my life, giving all my time, all my family. I've given him absolutely everything. You know, yeah.
No, I can. I've known you for a few years, and you are definitely full on. So you're definitely all in with it. It's great. And so our second question is, how did you know that you were called to ministry?
The call to ministry for me looks like, again, some funny coincidences. So my pastor asked me one day when I first became a Christian, what do you want to do? You know, what do you think you're called to do for God? And I said this word, evangelist, and I didn't even know what it meant. So I went home and I researched what evangelist was, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm up for doing that. Interestingly, my first prayer after giving my life to Jesus, I got saved on a Saturday night. I went home and I prayed this prayer: Lord, never let this fire go out. Jesus, would you help me to heal people so I can lead them to you and make me wiser than Solomon, because I'd read a bit of the Bible at that point, and Solomon was a really wise guy. So I wanted to be wiser than Solomon. I'm always a bit competitive like that, and so I guess I was like evangelistic from the word go. And then as time went on, my pastor would introduce me to other evangelists and evangelistic teaching and stuff like that. I think about a year into being a Christian, I was running a ministry called Hug, and essentially we'd started like a couple of different groups where we're feeding the poor, clothing the poor, like clothing people and praying for healing and stuff like that. And one of them was really far away from church, and I said we should take church to them because they can't get to church on a Sunday. And my pastor just said, you know, I love my pastor, by the way, he's my hero. He said, hey, Darren, if you're going to start a new church, you need to go to Bible college. And then one of my elders came up to me very shortly after that. I don't think he knew about the conversation that me and Jason had. My elder said, Darren, you ever thought about Bible college? And then my sister, who isn't even a Christian, messaged me on Facebook and said, hey, Darren, you know, you can do anything that you put your mind to, and I think you should go for whatever you feel like you're called to.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was thinking I didn't get no GCSEs. I didn't finish school. I got booted out for smoking weed full time. You know, and so I was like, I don't think I can do university. And my sister's saying this, and I'm starting to feel like some of this stuff is God saying to go and do this. I also had a really weird experience where I was asking God in my head. I was I was praying and I was saying, God, where, am I really called to this? How do I know whether I'm called to the ministry? And like most people don't get this, by the way. Most people don't get like any weirdness, but I seem to flourish in weirdness. And this I think like a pop up on my phone come up for a Bible website, and I clicked on it because it said, "How do you know you're called to leadership?" So I clicked on it, and it had all these scriptures about leaders are concerned with holiness, that they have a good character, and all that sort of stuff. And at the time, I thought I had a really good character. I'll be honest with you, I didn't. I was still a bit angry. I was still a bit like boisterous. You might think I'm boisterous now. You should have seen me 10 years ago. And but I went through this list and I thought, if I was comparing myself to some of the people that I know that follow Jesus, maybe I might fit some of this better than other people. And so it's to me, it felt like a confirmation that I was called to the ministry.
Wow. And then you did that, and we're going to come on to it, but you're leading a group of churches now in Lincolnshire, which is exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So,
so one of the questions we ask is, do you have a favourite book of the Bible? And if so, why?
Sorry, could you ask that one again? Because I didn't.
Do you have a favourite book of the Bible? And if so, why?
Yes. A favourite book of the Bible. So, I'll be honest with you, I have lots of favourite books. When I was a younger man, my favourite book was James, because it's a little bit judgmental. Nowadays, I'd probably go for 1 John, the whole thing of dearly beloved and all that sort of stuff. And even if you do sin, then he's faithful and just to forgive you. And if you love him, you'll keep his commands. If you're walking in truth, then and you won't be in dark. I love that sort of stuff. When I feel like a good old story, though, I do like Joshua and Genesis and Exodus and stuff like that. So yeah,
superb. Good. Excellent. So just tell us a little bit about what you've done in ministry and where you are now.
Lovely. So right this second, I am. Well, if I went through ministry from early days, Hug was our sort of thing that I got started where we, like I said, we fed the poor. We got close with people. If I was to spin the camera around just now, you'd see some of this happen. I'm in our church building at the moment. We've got like clothes rails, and we've got we've got all sorts of stuff happening just there. But Hug would have a clothes rail, we'd feed people like food and stuff. The one which I used to run on a I think it was a Thursday night, I'd serve it like lasagna and steak pie and all that sort of stuff. And one year we did a Christmas Day dinner, and I got a goose for all these guys that were like homeless, absolutely pucker. That's where I started off, feeding people that were poor after reading a book called Servolution by a guy called Dino Rizzo. Absolutely changed my ministry, changed my life. It made me who I am today, I think. And then from there, I went on to Bible college. Whilst I was at Bible college, I was really interested in Pentecost. By the way, my name's Darren. I am proper Pentecostal. I'm not charismatic at all. I am all in holiness, Pentecostal movement sort of guy, and I love that sort of stuff. So all of my degree, my whole 3 years, everything that came up that was an option between theology or Pentecost, I always went for the Pentecost option. So I studied like healing and things like that. My first year of Bible college, I thought, oh man, I really want to pray for someone to be healed myself. So I was in a little church called Sycamore Chapel in Tewkesbury. And I prayed. I asked the elders if we could do like an evening service where we prayed for sick people. Even though they were pretty much brethren, they went, "Yeah, go for it. Why not?" So I did this little healing service. About 15 people turned up. The church only had like 12 people in it, but 15 people turned up for the healing service, and we prayed for this guy. This fella came in who had like cancer in his bone marrow, and the doctor told him it was his last opportunity to do anything. Like there's no more radiotherapy or chemotherapy. He couldn't do anything, so he came to church. And I remember just thinking, man, what am I doing here? Like this is mental. Like, why is he coming to me for? This is crazy. And the prayer I prayed that day, it weren't special. I literally put my hand on him. I said, God, you better do something, because I ain't got a clue what I'm doing here. And I said that out loud as well, so you can imagine what he was thinking. A month later, he sends me an email saying, I've got the doctor's note for evidence, he says. a month ago I came to you and you prayed for healing for me with my cancer, and I was beyond any sort of help. The doctors have just sent me this note saying that they've now put me on remission. They've tested my blood again. Cancer is totally and utterly gone from my system. There's no more cancer in me. The next when we did a healing service in that church, that we had to open a balcony. There were 60 odd people in there. It was absolutely amazing. So that was a lovely time of ministry. And then second year I was at King Standing Elim, another wonderful church. Jonathan Skelton and the guys there, absolutely amazing church, doing a wonderful job, and going out at Christmas and giving every household a box of chocolates and stuff. Like, so good. And then what did I do? Third year I was at Worcester Elim, and we did like five healing services on the trot, and because obviously, you know, word gets around, doesn't it? And they were keen on that sort of stuff. So I helped out with a hospitality team, and then we did some healing services and stuff like that. And it was just good fun doing all that sort of stuff. I remember doing a barbecue, and I didn't realise it was Ramadan. It was in a really heavily Muslim sort of populated area. I was like, all the days to do this, I can't believe it. You know, so but you know, you live and you learn, don't you? But from there, I came over to Lincoln. And we started our first little church here in 2013. Nicknamed it Chav Church, so no Christians would come. And then you know, we just started reaching out to the poor and reaching out to the lost. Everything that we do is aimed at the unchurched. You know, we I think out of I think it was January this year, we had 97 people come to church. For church service, like 97 individuals, and out of those, maybe 12 of them were Christians before they came to us. Wow. Which is absolutely amazing in 6 or 7 years or something, you know. So nowadays we have the county council gave us 2 buildings, £1 a year each for 8 years, and then we can extend that by another 15 years afterwards. And they give us £5,000 a year per building to put books in it for library services, which brings in about 300 people a week into church every single week. 300 people come to church, come to library, church library thing, come to our centres to pick up a book or something like that. We've got cafes in both of them. We've got our food hubs, our clothing hubs. We've got so we've got 2 of these buildings in this city, and then we've got another youth community who meet as a church on a Thursday night as well. Although with COVID-19, that's sort of died a death, really. Unless they're together, they're interested. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's good.
So lots of great stuff, and you've packed so much into these kind of 4 or 5 years, 6 years. It's been amazing. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens there. You touched on it. You've before we move on, you've written a couple of books, haven't you? And one about Chav Church. Do you want to just say a little bit about those?
Yes. Sure. I think my 3rd year of Bible college, I've always been a bit of a rusher. And in between 2nd and 3rd year, you're meant to do like a little placement and stuff, and then in your 3rd year you do like a dissertation. My dissertation was on the class war in the church, and a lot of people say there isn't one. I disagree, and you know, make it out what you will. But I wrote that in between 2nd and 3rd year, and so my 3rd year of Bible college, I was quite bored, if I'm honest. So I did some youth lectures and stuff, and then I wrote a book called Chav Christianity, which highlights the good things that can be redeemed in the working class culture. Things like gossip. You know, gossip's a bad thing in the scriptures, and it's a bad thing in general. It breeds disunity. But if we gossip good news instead of bad news, then hey, you know, that's how the church grows, right? So if we can redeem some of the things that are working class culture, then yeah, you know, and also look into the beginnings of Pentecost in the UK and the British Pentecostalism, because it's a bit different to the American style of Pentecostal church. So I look at a bit of that, and then I wrote a second book on the Holy Spirit, getting to know the Holy Spirit, and then just recently I started writing some short books. For a little old lady in our church. I say little old lady, she probably might like me saying that. But she came in and she reads these short reads, like quick read books that take about half an hour to read. And she'll read one of those easily, but she won't open up her Bible because it seems too overwhelming for her. So I said to her, if I write, you know, a little sort of commentary on one story of the Bible, you know, so the healing of the leper, for example, just really short, easy read on that, just that one story. Do you want to have a go at reading it? So I wrote it, basically wrote a commentary in story form for this lady, and she loved it. So she was like, that's amazing. So I wrote I've written a 3 of those so far, and I've published them to Amazon as well. So they're all available from there as well now. So
Fantastic.
yeah, it's real good. You know, I love writing.
Oh, fantastic. So, outside of Jesus, who has influenced you the most in your ministry?
So it will be really, really easy to say people like my pastor, Jason, one of my elders, Paul, he influenced me loads. I worked with him for like a year and a half, delivering furniture as like an evangelist sort of thing. And then, you know, there's people like Gordon Neal, my old regional superintendent, you know, absolutely amazing guy. John Glass mentors me quite a lot. He's a great guy as well. But in all honesty, those guys aren't around me as much as my wife. And my wife, bless her heart, influences me more than anyone else. She's the one who stops me from being too crazy. She's the one who stops me from running off ahead. You know, she's the one who stops me from throwing fireballs in church. You know, like I see people bending in and stuff on the God telly, and I'm like, I want to have a go at that. I'll be honest with you, I tried it once, and it wasn't quite well. But you know, yeah, she's the one who keeps my head and my actions stable as such. And so it's her desire for social justice. It's her desire not to be embarrassed most of the time, actually, by my actions that help me to look stable, even if I'm thinking, let's go wild. You know, great.
Excellent. Everybody needs a good other half behind them, don't they? Man or woman, if you know, you've gotta have that there. What is the most challenging thing about your current role outside of this COVID-19? Because that's hopefully it'll be a short-lived thing, so to speak, in time.
Yeah, so outside of COVID-19, we have these 2 buildings, and in order to get that $5,000 a year, which basically pays for the bills and stuff, which means our tithes and offerings can go to helpful things like you know, ministry stuff, which is good news, isn't it? But in order to get that $5,000 a year, in order to have these buildings, we promised to have libraries in them. And so 2 days a week, I'm on Birchwood, which is an estate with 13,000 people on it, about maybe 2 miles from here. And I'm in there 2 days a week, 9 to 5, and then on Booton, which is where I am at the moment, I'm in here 2 days a week as well. So if you can imagine, I'm an evangelist, and I love being out in the streets. I love meeting new people. I love taking like food to people, like going up to people and telling them about Jesus on back streets, pray for people to be healed. You know, walk around Sainsbury's looking for people on crutches to pray for. We actually do that sort of stuff. You know, it's good fun. Being stuck in these buildings grates on me because I'm not in my natural environment, and so that's quite hard for me to do, being stuck in the office. So I guess the hardest thing for me recently in ministry has been being locked into 4 walls. Although there's lots of great evangelistic opportunities, and I've been like mentoring some people. I've like different groups that I mentor and stuff. I wrote a little booklet, a mentoring booklet on like the beginnings of faith in Jesus. So I lead people to Jesus, and I take them through this book. I've been able to do that a lot more when I'm locked into the buildings, but still, you know, I need a bit of sunshine, you know.
Well, I can see you as an evangelistic librarian. I can see that working. So excellent. And then, what is the most enjoyable thing about your current role?
I think my current role has always sort of coincided with my whole time of being a Christian. I don't really lead someone to Jesus until about a year and a half into following Jesus, you know. So I didn't get to lead someone through the prayer of faith and all that sort of stuff, prayer of repentance and stuff. And then I didn't really preach that message either, you know. So I'd organised an event at Ealing, Northampton, and like loads and loads of people come along, and loads of people made commitments to follow Jesus. But a guy called Barry Woodward was telling his testimony, and I got to pray with someone to give their life to Jesus, and that was amazing for me. I loved that. That was great. More recently, that's turned from someone else preaching the gospel and being able to lead someone to faith to me being able to do that, you know. So I've been moving in the prophetic quite a lot lately. I'm starting to realise that maybe I'm half decent at that stuff. So like, mate, I'll tell you what, sit someone down in a church building put a bit of worship on and speak their own life to them, and then turn around and say, you want to know more about this Jesus fella? Honestly, I get to do that all the time. And it's just absolutely amazing. Leading someone to faith, seeing their look on their face when they realise Jesus is real and he really loves them. He's not against them. He's for them. Is priceless. And I can't wait to get to heaven where I could be one of them, like, preacher with a jet and all that sort of stuff, and have loads of money, and all that sort of stuff. But I reckon when I get to heaven and there's all these people that I've led to faith and they're with me, that's going to be my sort of my treasure as such. I believe that's where I'm at. That's my heart. I love leading people to faith in Jesus.
Cool. So if you imagine you had a time machine and you could go back to when you started in ministry, what bit of advice would you give the younger Darren Edwards as he was starting out, knowing what you know now?
Yes, I would say that there's no need to rush everything all the time.
So pace yourself.
Like, don't get me wrong. That's it. The speed in which God's doing stuff is amazing. It's all good, and maybe I'm like, that's my personality. I'm a bit of a rusher. I rush in head first. I'm definitely a Peter, and I'm the sort of person who would definitely try walking on water a few times if I failed the first couple of times. I definitely tell myself not to rush, not to get too serious about myself, not to think that I know everything. I've always thought I knew everything, and then the longer I've gone on this journey, the more I realise I have no idea. I've just started researching more on the prophetic stuff. I just found out there's different types of prophets. Who knew that? Apparently there's a seer and a nabby, whatever they are. Let's all look at that sort of stuff. So that's and finding out lots of stuff about that.
Cool.
But
yeah, excellent. So it would be remiss not to ask about our current situation. What being with COVID-19, what opportunities and challenges do you see for the local church at this time?
So local church. To be honest with you, all this online stuff is absolutely amazing, and I think it's like an eye opener. There's definitely an open door right there for mission. I do believe that we've gone from being a local church to a global church in a snap of a finger. Even this, like last night, about 10 o'clock in the evening, I got a message from a lady called Lydia Marrow, who works with Shape the Nations, and I'd already contacted her once before about coming over to Lincolnshire to do some music stuff. But then they messaged me last night and just said, "Hey, Lydia's up for speaking if you want to do anything with you." So I said, "Yeah, for sure. Let's have a prophetic encounter night." And I said, "How about like end of May?" And they said, "Oh, we could do it tomorrow." So tomorrow, what's today? Monday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, I'm live streaming with Lydia from Florida, who's going to prophesy into our church, into Lincolnshire, and into our region. You know what I mean? I'm like, we've gone from local to global in a snap of a finger, so which is great. And then other stuff is happening. The government really wanted to work with us. Like I said just before we started, I think I just got an email saying, "Here's £1,000," from local government saying, "Darren, you're doing a great job. Have some money." And if they're willing to give you money, they're willing to give you anything, right? So they're doing amazing stuff. We're already really hooked up with local government and organisations and councils and that sort of stuff. But they see our value right now.
Yeah.
And then finally, we as a church have just started planting more. So we let's have a look. I'm just building a new website for our church. I started yesterday and I'm just building it up. One of the pages on our website is going to be a page that lists our churches. From tomorrow or the day after, it's going to have Passion, which is our youth church. It's going to have Birchwood, Bootham, and then it's going to have Online Community Church. So straight away we were thinking, let's start an online church. I see some other people doing that. The other thing that I'm keen to do as well is I've got a new strategy. I've got this new strategy. I want to essentially try and build some connections with other towns and cities and villages and stuff, and see if we can gather even just 5 or 6 people together who might be able to have a little service together. And then I'm going to stream in our service in the mornings into their lounge or into a community centre. We'll pay for like cinema kits and all that, like big old speakers and like all the lighting and all that sort of stuff. We'll get a bouncy castle from, to have a bouncy castle in church every week, so we'll get a bouncy castle and we'll we'll make church happen where they are, but we'll stream it in on a Sunday morning instead of me being there live, and then do like a live, like a service on an evening where they are. So I'm thinking like that, thinking whilst all this is going on, I'm like, man, let's start planting. So I'm thinking, let's plant like 6 churches now. So I've been like trying to connect with people in like Boston and Stamford and Skegness and Scunthorpe and Louth and all these towns and villages near us. And I've already connected with about 4 or 5 people, and I reckon we might plant another like 6 churches in the next few years. So come on, we'll give that a go.
Absolutely. So I think you may have touched on this in our with our final question is, do you think when this is all over, when we can gather together on a Sunday, do you think church will go back to doing it the same way, or do you think this is going to change things?
I don't know. I know things will not go back to the same way as what they were for us guys here. We've always been quite nomadic, quite fresh, so we're quite comfortable with just changing things up in a blink of an eye. What's more, I think in the past maybe we haven't changed liturgy and stylistic stuff readily enough, because we feel like we're going to lose people when we change things up. And maybe at the moment, because we've already changed it now, we've had to change for this COVID-19 thing. This thing might go on for another year, so people are going to be used to the new already. So why would you go back to the old to go back to the new afterwards? So you may as well just carry on and say, oh, this is just the way we're doing it from now on. So in terms of our liturgy, I say liturgy is a big word, and Pentecostals don't like it, but Pentecostals have it as well. We have liturgy. Liturgy is the way that we do our service on a Sunday. We've always been trying to think of the best way to be more evangelistic, and after a bit of advice that Mark Pugh gave with his team through the Elim stuff recently, we went for a shorter preach on a Sunday and then a time for people to respond and ask questions about it. So it's a lot more participatory, a lot more engaging the services, rather than me just preaching for 45 minutes, because believe it or not, people don't want to listen to 45 minutes. No. You got to win them in the first 10 seconds of them logging onto your stream. So you got to be ready for that. And so I think for us guys, definitely, and maybe for some other churches, right now I'm seeing we've just changed to become more evangelistic and more engaging. Why would I go back to not being evangelistic and engaging? So we'll carry on like this forever, well, until the next opportunity comes along that causes us to be a bit more evangelistic and engaging. So when we come back after COVID-19, it'll be exactly the same service as it is at the moment on a Sunday. There'll just be people sitting in seats with us as well as online. So that's what I'm thinking. So the service will be an hour and a half, sounds what it is. The preach will be 20 minutes. There'll be a song, and people will be able to respond and ask questions in the service and online, and then we'll respond to everyone all together as we go on into that sort of second part of the service, a Q&A sort of stuff. So cool. My answer is hopefully a lot of people aren't going to go back to the old way where they're struggling to be more evangelistic. They're going to carry on in their new evangelistic style and win the loss. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, definitely. My heart, as yours, is to see more and more people come to know Jesus through this. So it's going to be exciting. Darren, there's been gold in there, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much. And we'll link in the comments to Ignite Church and all of that, so people can see what's going on. So have a great day, and thank you very much.
Bless you, mate. See ya.